With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halverson.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the AgNet News Hour. Coming up later, the restraining order against the State Water Board is extended. We'll have more on that coming up, but we start today with Chuck Zimmerman.
I'm at the Farm Progress Show, and I am right now at the Golden Harvest booth, and I have with me Eric Boyk. And first of all, Eric, tell folks what you do.
I'm Eric Boyk. I'm the president of North American Seeds for Syngenta.
It's good to see you here again, and I'd like to maybe just start with you telling me what is new and exciting going on with the company for your growers, a lot of them that are wandering around here right now.
Yeah, I think there's two things that I'd really like to highlight. One is the product innovation that we have is really, really amazing. When we think about our new U series of products that's in the marketplace, that's going especially across the northern Corn Belt for those products. Farmers right now are faced with commodity prices that nobody's happy with, and every bushel counts. And the yield innovation that we're seeing out of those products is really the output of all the investment that we started to put into the business in 2017 and 2018. So those products we're really excited about. We have tremendous soybeans with trait choice, as we've always had, whether farmers using Enlist or Extend Flex. That's key. But one of the things that's truly unique is this GHX business model that we have to be bold, simple, seamless, modern, in a way that farmers like to do business, not having to go through the hoops and the hurdles of purchasing seed the way farmers hate to purchase seed, but something that really is enjoyable for them, that is completely transparent to them in the process to drive the most yield out of every seed that they plant.
Now, I thought it was very interesting to me as an ag nerd to talk to one of your folks about the app that you have that's now in 2.0 and has a little bit of AI GPT built into it. That just, when you described it, it is something that will help them get the information, maybe even some recommendations they need. Yeah,
the farmers are using more digital technology, right? Now, farmers aren't necessarily wanting to make a $300,000 seed purchase in an app yet, but they do want to make their inputs the most valuable they can have and get the biggest return on investment. And many times, a quick, simple question, if they can ask a quick, simple question like, what does sudden death syndrome look like? And it brings back a picture of sudden death syndrome when they're in the field, they can then diagnose and work faster in their operations and more effective.
Well, with this kind of farm economy we have, which is a little mixed up in the fact that, the price getting for your commodity might not be too bad, but then the input side of it just kind of negates that. Is there ways that you can help farmers that are maybe struggling a little bit about that?
Yeah, there's several ways we can do it. In all our channels that we sell seed through, whether it's the NK brand or the Golden Harvest GHX model, we do have financing offers that are really important, and not just financing offers where a farmer gives up all the cash discount either. Our Golden Advantage offer is a 0% extended terms offer that's really valuable for farmers, simple and very effective to use, help them spread their working capital. And I think in addition to that, things that we partner with our seed, like our seed care products, are also ways that farmers can produce more revenue per acre out of that investment that they're putting in. And right now it's about protecting yield, about making yield, and really helping farmers understand how they can deliver the best profit for their operation.
Well, as we are in harvest, this must be a pretty vital time to, at the same time, looking ahead and maybe starting to make that purchase then for next season?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're in the midst of sales season. A lot of farmers like to get that done before harvest. Some wait till during harvest. Some wait till after harvest. Some wait till the day before planting. But generally speaking, we're in the middle of that, and we're really looking forward to 2025 and 2026 is going to be a really innovative set of years for Syngenta. We introduced a new rootworm stack in the marketplace to control rootworms, and if you're in the northern Corn Belt, you know those little green bugs can be a real pain in the butt. So being able to tackle that, we're launching new seed care products. So the future's bright.
Yeah, I've heard it mentioned a couple times since I've been here about being able to get supply when they need it, because we've had supply chain issues here and there. And how about from your perspective, being able to supply farmers that know what they want?
Yeah, from a supply standpoint, a seed supply, what's really good is farmers who buy our seed also raise our seed. And much like we're hearing around record yields across Iowa and Illinois and Nebraska, that's where we raise a lot of our seed at. And so we have really good seed field yields. And the technology, the digital technology we use behind raising seed is really impressive to be able to grow the maximum number of kernels out of every acre that we plant and have genetic diversity in doing it. So our supply chain is really in good shape in being able to serve farmers for 2025.
Well, before we close, anything else you'd like to touch on that we didn't?
I think we hit most of it. We want to be partners of farmers and want to help farmers be successful. We're a meaningful choice to the other competitors that are out there, and choice is important in an ag economy like we have today.
All right, Eric, well, thank you very much for visiting with me here at the Farm Progress Show. Good to see you as always. I'm Chuck Zimmerman reporting.
You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. In today's National Spotlight, it's my favorite season, football season. Also means tailgate party season. Here's how to avoid food poisoning problems at the party. Gary Crawford has more.
It's fall, and one thing that season brings is, yes, football and some terrific tailgate parties. Some folks never make it in to see the game at all.
Sometimes the parking lot party is the party. It can be better than the event, yeah.
Yet it can be more dangerous, too, than the event. This from Meredith Carruthers, food safety expert with the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Meat and Poultry Hotline, the number of which we'll give you shortly. And she knows a lot about her subject, don't you, right?
Yeah, I have a good amount of experience with tailgating.
No, I meant knowing about people sometimes getting seriously ill from food poisoning at tailgate parties. She says it all boils down to partiers not handling perishable foods like raw meat and poultry a safe way that keeps any bacteria on or in that food from multiplying to dangerous levels. She says if you are a tailgater, cold is your friend. She says chances are there could be bacteria on or in ground beef patties, for example, or chicken wings, any perishable food. But she says when the food is kept below 40 degrees, what bacteria there is in there is sleeping and dormant, not multiplying. So Meredith says we need to make sure that we have enough ice, enough coolers to keep raw meat and poultry and other perishable foods down below 40 degrees the whole time, from driving to the party, setting up everything, to cooking that food.
If that food gets brought above that temperature of 40 degrees Fahrenheit and it sits there for a long time, you're giving that bacteria an opportunity to multiply, to reach potentially dangerous levels where they can produce heat-resistant toxins that won't be killed by cooking later on. And that's a really big risk, and you can't make your food safe after that happens.
Also, Meredith says it's a good idea when we're packing up the raw meat and poultry to take it to the parking lot to put as much space as possible between the food that's going to be cooked and the other foods like salad that will be eaten raw. And we need to maintain that separation during the party.
Keeping it totally separate from anything else that's cooked or ready to eat already. So take it onto a separate table, get it on a separate plate. That'll help keep it away from those other foods.
Because just a few drops of meat juice on those ready-to-eat foods could be enough to put bacteria onto those foods and cause a problem. Next time, Tailgate Part 2. Meredith will talk about safely cooking foods, how to handle them after cooking. If you have questions about any food safety subject, you can call the Meat and Poultry Hotline. Here's the number, 1-888-MP-HOTLINE, 1-888-MP Hotline. If you call weekdays between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. Eastern Time, you get to talk to a live food safety expert. Also, you can do live chat with an expert online. Ask.usda.gov. That's ask.usda.gov. And have a great, safe tailgate party. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
That's today's National Spotlight. Now here's the livestock report. The Agriculture Secretary this week announced the next step is taking place regarding potential development of an H5N1 virus vaccine for cattle. Rod Bain has more.
Since I'm at the Farm Progress Show, we obviously want to make sure that we announce some progress.
And Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack Wednesday presented that progress report in the form of efforts to develop an H5N1 vaccine for dairy cattle.
We have a number of companies that have been working on vaccine, and one company has now presented sufficient information to the USDA to allow me to authorize, what I did this week, the first field trial of a vaccine for cattle, H5N1, for safety purposes.
The Secretary notes the field trial is the next step towards vaccine development,
which hopefully we'll be able to develop in the near term with the information that we'll get from this field trial. That will allow us to determine whether we can go to the next level, next set of steps necessary to ensure safe and effective use of the vaccine.
Further details regarding the vaccine field trial and oversight include
the Center for Veterinary Biologics basically overseeing this effort out of our facility in Ames, Iowa.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. Let's talk about LEP. What are the key benefits of your products for farmers in the Western Zone?
So Live Earth Products, we mine and manufacture a ingredient called humate. Now, humate is rich in organic acids called humic acid and fulvic acid. Now, those are common components in your soil organic matter. And here in the western United States, unlike those places around the Mississippi going east, actually have very low organic matter. Now, your organic matter is key think of it as the pantry in the soil. So it's key to water retention, nutrient retention, nutrient cycling, microbial activity, those kind of things. So anything that's going to impact the increase in soil organic matter will also impact things like water holding capacity and nutrient holding capacity, which is a big deal here in the West when water is not as abundant as it is in the east side of the United States.
Now, what about nitrate? I know nitrate can be a problem in some soils. So how do LEP products help reduce the nitrate problem on saturated soils?
So Live Earth Products is not unique in how we affect nitrogen, but any organic matter will help retain nitrogen. So typically the mechanisms that we use are blending the nitrogen with the humate. So what happens is the nitrogen will attach to the humic acid, and you will see less of the processes that degrade or volatilize nitrogen. So nitrogen will either convert to a gas, or it'll be converted by microbes into a nitrate and leach to the soil. So the longer you have that product is not being volatilized or converted, the longer opportunity for that nutrient to be used by the plant. We have university testing that has shown that when you blend these organic acids with the nutrient, you give that plant a longer opportunity to use that nutrient before it's lost, volatilized, or converted.
To get to know more about Live Earth products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com. I'm Sabrina Halverson. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halverson. We will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Coming up in a few moments, we'll have today's This Land of Ours report, but first, more of the day's agriculture news. And with a preview of what you'll hear today on AgNet West, here's Brian German.
Legal efforts challenging probationary status under the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act continue moving forward. A Kings County Superior Court judge has extended a temporary restraining order preventing the State Water Resources Control Board from collecting groundwater pumping data or charging extraction fees in the Tulare Lake subbasin. Originally issued on July 15th, the order now remains in effect until September 13th. The Water Board had placed the subbasin on probation in April due to an inadequate groundwater management plan, which included requirements for well registration, flow meters, and $20 per acre-foot extraction fees. The Kings County Farm Bureau challenged the measures, arguing they're costly and redundant. KCFB Executive Director Dusty Ferentz had hoped for a preliminary injunction, but expressed appreciation for the judge's thorough consideration in extending the order. The legal battle over the proposed $24.6 billion merger between grocery giants Kroger and Albertsons has intensified. The Federal Trade Commission opposes the merger, arguing it would reduce competition, raise prices, and harm workers. The FTC is seeking a preliminary injunction in federal court to block the merger while it conducts an in-depth investigation through its internal process. The hearing, which began on August 26th, is expected to last 3 weeks with both sides presenting their arguments. The FTC contends that the merger would negatively impact consumers and is concerned about the potential loss of competitive pricing, product quality, and worker benefits. Kroger and Albertsons are fighting back, claiming the FTC's objections overlook the broader competition from non-traditional grocery retailers like Walmart and Amazon. They also argue that the FTC's dual approach of pursuing the case in both federal court and through an in-house tribunal violates constitutional protections. Kroger's also filed a lawsuit against the FTC seeking to halt the administrative proceedings and have the case resolved solely in federal court. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is making significant strides through the Conservation Reserve Program, with more than 2.2 million acres being accepted from farmers and landowners this year. The CRP is nearing its 27 million acre limit, showing how popular these programs are. The grassland CRP is particularly successful, adding nearly 1.44 million acres in 2024, bringing the total to over 10 million acres. This program allows farmers to continue grazing and haying while also protecting the environment. Additionally, the general CRP has enrolled 200,000 acres this year, targeting less productive farmland to improve water quality, prevent erosion, and support wildlife. The continuous CRP, which accepts offers year-round, has added 565,000 acres so far in 2024. Farmers can still participate by contacting their local USDA service center. A recent report from AgWest Farm Credit highlights challenges in dairy and hay production across western states. Dairy farmers are facing a tough year, with milk production dropping for the 11th month in a row, especially in New Mexico, Arizona, and California. Despite some price improvements, the higher costs and previous losses make it hard for dairy farmers to expand. For hay producers, the summer's heat waves, wildfires, and soft export demand have created difficulties. In places like California and Arizona, the extreme heat has reduced alfalfa quality and yields. Prices are also weaker than expected, especially in California's San Joaquin Valley, which usually sets the tone for the western U.S. market. Export demand for hay is low due to high feed costs, a strong U.S. dollar, and economic issues in East Asia, particularly China. Registration is open for the Thrive Global Impact Summit, scheduled for November 6th and 7th in Santa Clara. With over 300 industry leaders and Thrive partners attending last year, the event is meant to serve as a destination for anyone passionate about shaping the future of agri-food tech. The pre-summit networking reception will take place at 6 p.m. on November 7th at the Marriott Santa Clara. The full summit will take place the following day, beginning at 9 in the morning. Some of the summit's panel discussions will include AI's transformative potential in agriculture, driving agri-food innovation through global collaboration, and dairy's critical role in methane mitigation. The winners of the Thrive Global Impact Challenge will also be announced, with each of the finalists making a live pitch on stage. More information about the summit is available at thriveagrifood.com. I'm Brian German for AgNet West Radio Network.
The USDA releases updated guidance on labeling. That's coming up on This Land of Ours. The USDA announced the availability of updated guidelines that make recommendations to strengthen the documentation that supports animal raising or environmental-related claims on meat or poultry product labels. The action builds on the work USDA has already undertaken to protect consumers from false and misleading labels. Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack says these updates will help level the playing field for businesses who are truthfully using these claims and ensure that people can trust the labels when they buy meat and poultry products. Animal raising claims like raised without antibiotics or grass-fed, and environmental claims like raised using regenerative agricultural practices are voluntary marketing claims detailing certain aspects of how the animals are raised or how the products maintain and improve the environment. The Food Safety and Inspection Service reviews the evidence to support these claims that can only be included on meat and poultry labels once they've been approved by the agency. You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Chuck Zimmerman.
At the Farm Progress Show, I'm visiting with the Clean Fuels Alliance booth, but I have with me some special guests from PepsiCo, and I have two guys here. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Adam.
Thank you, Chuck. My name is Adam Buchenbach. I lead the fleet engineering sustainability teams for North America for PepsiCo Foods and PepsiCo Beverages.
And how about you?
Yeah, I'm Dan Christensen with PepsiCo. I'm in my 9th year with the company. Senior Director for Government and External Affairs. So I wear a couple different hats, and the hat I'm here wearing today is getting out and talking with a lot of constituencies in the ag value chain about what we're doing to support farmers.
Well, talking about that, since we are at Farm Progress Show, what brought you here along with the Clean Fuels folks?
Yeah. I mean, it's the largest outdoor trade show for ag in the world, and so this was a venue that we've been thinking about for quite some time to get in front of farmers and talk about what we're doing. And the partnership with Clean Fuels made a ton of sense because we're new members, and so, we got together with them and said, hey, are you thinking about going there? We'd love to go in on a lot with you. And so it was a great chance for us to come here, talk about the biodiesel work that we're doing in our fleet, also talk about a lot of the on-farm sustainability work that we're doing in partnership with our other value chain partners.
Well, I did want to talk about that with your fleet is, what drew you to that? What's the extent of it, and what does it mean for PepsiCo?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me start back in 2021. We launched PepsiCo Positive, which is really our strategic transformation of what we think is going to help create value and growth in the future. And it follows 3 pillars: positive agriculture, positive value chain, and positive choices in our products. So our fleet really falls under that positive value chain piece, and we've got some pretty aggressive carbon reduction goals. So as we look towards our net zero target by 2040 of reducing the emissions associated with our operations, specifically our private fleet, we've looked at a suite of solutions. So we've done a lot with electrification in the field. We run one of the largest over-the-road natural gas fleets, which is primarily powered by renewable natural gas. And we were looking for other solutions to make meaningful impact as we go on this journey. And so we came upon both renewable diesel and biodiesel as solutions that we could incorporate into our fleet of diesel tractors today and start making progress towards those goals.
Now, in your fleet, I don't know how many vehicles you have, but is this across the board, or are you just still working into it?
That's a great question. So we have one of the largest private fleets here in North America, a little over 80,000 total assets. For us, we've really targeted biofuels and renewable and alternative fuels in our over-the-road business. So some of the equipment that uses the most fuel in our operations has the largest emissions impact. One thing we've tried to focus in on is progress over perfection, and being able to switch over those trucks today to run on a biogenic fuel helps us start to make that meaningful progress. When we look at some of our more last mile direct store delivery type operations, electrification for us fits really well. So we are spending a lot of time with that solution there. But it's these long distance over the road routes that are hard to electrify, hard to decarbonize, where we might go from Kansas to the Canadian border, down to the Mexican border and back. These are really difficult places where there's not a lot of infrastructure, very challenging duty cycles. And this is where we've been able to incorporate biofuels and really start to make meaningful progress towards those goals.
We have a lot of soybean growers here. So when they come by, what kind of questions are they asking? They probably are wondering just exactly what you guys are doing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's great. I mean, part of the draw is we have a lot of hydration here for them and snacks, so it helps draw the people in. And then we've got this beautiful biodiesel truck here, which just catches people's eye, draws in, and then they immediately have questions and want to know about it. So today, especially, we've seen a lot of traffic coming in, people asking a lot of, very detailed, good questions about how the truck works, and then that gives us an opportunity to talk about, where this fits into our strategy, how it supports farmers, because a lot of the fuel stock comes from soybean oil, corn oil, so it's been great today, yeah.
Yeah, I would not doubt that there are farmers that maybe aren't using biodiesel themselves. Maybe this gives them some ideas.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we talked to a few folks today who, they wanted to go back 20 years, and their experience with biodiesel initially was not good. And so they've not used it since. And, Adam, and we have one of our drivers here too, Brian, have just been great about talking about how the quality of the fuel has increased. And, you talk to a driver like Brian who does 600 miles a day on a truck like the one we have here. I mean, that's a pretty good proof point for folks to know that this is a solution that can work.
Well, where do you go from here?
So where do we go from here? We're continuing to incorporate low carbon solutions across our fleet. Today we have about 100 trucks here in the U.S. operating on B99 up to B100. We've upfit a couple hundred additional trucks beyond that with a solution from Optimus Technologies, which allows us to run on up to B100. So we're continuing to grow the number of diesel tractors that we have in our fleet that are equipped with this system. And as we continue to deploy fuel at our locations for B99 and B100, we can continue to convert more of those traditional petroleum gallons over. We're also looking for opportunities to bring this to retail. So not only can our fleet benefit from it, but a lot of our third parties we rely on to move goods throughout our supply chain can also take advantage of some of those same benefits.
Well, before we close, anything else either one of you might want to say we didn't touch on?
Well, I can just say, a big thank you to everybody that's come by the booth today, and for the Farm Progress team for being so great about welcoming us in. I don't know if it's true, but I've heard from multiple people come up to me and say, we don't think we've ever seen a food and beverage company show up at Farm Progress before. We had Governor Reynolds here yesterday, stopped by the booth. We talked with her for about 10-15 minutes, said the same thing, and just said, we need more folks on that end of the value chain showing up at places like this. We need to make the connection. So as much as anything else, we're really here to say we're a part of that value chain. We support what we call the first mile of that value chain, our farmers, and really want to make sure people understand everything we're doing.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much, Adam and Dan. We are here at the Farm Progress Show. I'm Chuck Zimmerman reporting.
An initiative to increase domestic fertilizer production was expanded this week with the announcement of 7 new projects under a USDA program. Rod Bain has more.
A return to Iowa for the annual Farm Progress Show. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack in his home state with the announcement Wednesday connected to USDA's Fertilizer Production Expansion Program.
We're announcing an additional 7 projects that we're funding in 7 states, an investment of about $35 million in expanded fertilizer capacity.
The program awards grants to help business modernize equipment, adopt new technologies, build production plants, and other methods to improve domestic fertilizer production. Since the creation of FPEP,
we have to date funded 64 projects within this fertilizer initiative, investing $286 million. These projects are located in 32 states.
An expected over 5.6 million tons of increased fertilizer production is estimated through FPEP projects. And according to the Secretary,
we have more projects that we're in the process of reviewing from an environmental standpoint, and sure that over the course of the next 2 months or so, we'll be making additional announcements.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This is the AgNet News Hour, and we will be back in just a moment with more agriculture news. Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here is today's featured interview with Gino DeCaro, Director of Communications at Wine Institute. To get us started, would you please just tell us a little bit about what it's all about?
Sure. So this September is the 20th annual California Wine Month. So it's a great milestone for us, and we hope to reach many, many more. But it's just a great time and a great month to recognize the cultural and economic significance of California's wine community. And basically, wineries and wine regions host events all throughout the month. And given that it's harvest time, it's just a perfect time to give folks real visibility on harvest. And it's a perfect time to get folks and their families and friends to come out and visit some of these wineries, support agritourism, and buy some real beautiful California wines.
I love that you mentioned the cultural aspects of California wine. Let's talk about that a little bit more because, I know that there are a lot of things people think of California for, but when you think of California, one of them is definitely wine.
Yes, California's got a very rich 250-year history making wine. And of course, wine goes much further back than that. The world's been making wine for thousands of years. And there's really no other beverage. There's no other beverage that really connects friends and family more than someone showing up to a house or showing up to an event with a bottle of wine, and really driving those connections that we all seem to need a little bit more these days. In fact, this California Wine Month, we're encouraging people to turn off their phones and their gadgets and look their friends and family in the face and enjoy a glass of wine and really make that connection that we all need.
That's true. When you think about it, the bottle of wine is the traditional gift that you take when you're going to somebody's house or, when there's an occasion, it's that bottle of wine. And it's just become such a part of our just a part of our culture, to use that word again. What are some of the things that people can expect when they head out to some of these events that are happening during the month?
Yeah, so there are basically more than 70 events hosted across the state, and some of them are at wineries, some of them are regional events, and California, most people don't know this, but California has 49 wine grape producing counties of 58 counties in the state. So basically, if you're in California, you can find wine close and you can likely find one of these events. And for your listeners, you can go to discovercaliforniawines.com to see a listing of these events and search by region. You can find events in Napa to Livermore to Sonoma, all the way to Temecula, certainly Lodi, even events in Orange County. They are everywhere. One of our favorite ones this year is at Murrieta's Well in Livermore. They're actually having their expert falconer out to talk to their guests while they taste wine and explain the role birds of prey play in sustainable farming practices. Those are the types of things that folks can really expect to see. Kind of the not just your standard wine tastings. There are much bigger and more interesting events. And of course, you do these things among the vines most of the time. Lots of food and wine pairings from winemakers. Of course, those are all using locally, not all, but most of them are using locally sourced food. So you're supporting thousands of California farmers, not only wine grape growers, but others too. So again, we encourage people to go to discovercaliforniawines.com to see a listing of these events and find something they want to participate in.
I'm a lifelong Californian. And so I grew up around a lot of this, but a lot of people didn't. And I'm curious if you've heard from anybody, like some of the things that they are surprised to learn about wines or about California wines. Have you heard any interesting tidbits?
Well, I think the biggest thing I've heard, and I will say I'm new to the Wine Institute over the past 2 years, and one of the things I have found most fascinating is that, first of all, like I said, there's wine everywhere, and there is wine for everyone. We produce more than 100 wine varieties in California, so there literally isn't a flavor profile that can't be found in California. Um, and I will say, I think people are pretty surprised to hear at how unique our region, our overall state region is for making wine, with the valley and those gaps in the mountains that allow that cool ocean air to come in and cool down the grapes. It's a dynamic that you literally won't see anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, isn't that I just find that fascinating as well, that in all of our different subregions, if you will, of California, um, just the opportunities to have different wines produced and different grapes growing, and then for them all to be, just so useful in the industry. Like you said, you really don't see that a lot of places, because California just has so much diversity just in its terrain alone to allow for so many different types of things to grow. Um, it,
Absolutely.
it's such a neat place.
It is. I mean, people are really surprised to hear. You go to San Diego, there's more than 100 wineries down in San Diego County. People are really surprised to hear that. It's just things they don't hear about. They might even be buying those wines occasionally, but not even realizing it. There is literally wine at every corner, and the broadest spectrum of wine grapes you could possibly find.
Can you tell me a little bit about how much the wine industry benefits California?
Yes, thanks to the efforts of more than 6,200 California wineries and wine grape growers, wine is one of the most sustainable and highly value-added agricultural products in the state, and it supports more than 1.1 million U.S. jobs and more than 170 billion in annual economic activity. So while most of the wineries are small, the industry is big.
Those are important numbers too, but just the economic value and all of those jobs that our California wine brings, I think, are just very important numbers.
They are, and it's important to note that those aren't just winery jobs. Those are tourism jobs that are support wineries. There's local retail jobs. Literally, California wine is quite a significant and substantial piece of California's economy. So again, this is why we hope everyone will get out California Wine Month and participate and enjoy.
So, is there anything else that you think is important for our listeners to know, either about the California Wine Month or about some of the events or about the Institute?
I will say, I can't let this go without mentioning that, wineries attract more than 25 million tourist visits each year. So this is a big part of agritourism in California, and most of your listeners have probably seen Visit California is highlighting this a lot these days. I mean, we just encourage people to get out and really support these farmers. More than 3/4 of California's wineries are small and family owned of the 6,200 that exist. And those small and family owned wineries make less than 5,000 cases. So they would love to sell you their wine, whether it's at the winery or in a retail establishment. And they'd love to see you in their winery and really share with you the great processes and interesting features of the regions that they have where they're growing their grapes. So get out and support them. It's just awesome. And discovercaliforniawines.com is where you can go to find this stuff. I could go down a list of all of these events, but literally from the Sierra foothills to San Francisco to the North Coast to Temecula, Lodi, Orange County, Central Valley, you can find an event and you can find a wine that works for you.
And what was that website one more time?
DiscoverCaliforniaWines.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Our pleasure, Sabrina.
You're listening to the AgNet News Hour. Now for more news. How are sheep and solar panels connected to a USDA partnership for Climate Smart Commodities funded research project? Rod Bain reports.
As work continues on USDA-funded Partnership for Climate Smart Commodities projects, one effort that perhaps may have some wondering, how is this connected to that, involves lambs and sheep.
We applied for USDA and got a $5 million climate grant from them.
And Pete Camino of the American Lamb Board says what may further raise an eyebrow for some involves a connection between sheep and solar panels.
We found out that there was a lot of solar panels. In fact, they're talking about 1 million acres of solar panels going to be put in the United States in the next 4 or 5 years. And they're looking for some way to control the grazing underneath these panels. And cattle won't work because they'll rub them down. Goats all over the top of them. But sheep are an ideal situation to graze underneath these panels and keep the vegetation down.
The idea is to measure climate-smart impacts associated with grazing around solar panels. Think carbon sequestration and soil health as examples, as well as marketing of climate-smart sheep and lamb products. Camino says his organization recently hired a sustainability director to oversee these efforts.
I teach them how to graze underneath these things, the carrying capacity underneath these solar panels. He's starting a pilot project with this, and then we're going to expand it all out to the extension agents, and then they're going to expand it out into the producers.
The pilot project covers 4 states, California, Texas, Montana, and North Carolina. In addition, the American Lamb Board is partnering with Michigan State University to evaluate the sheep industry's environmental footprint. That evaluation includes emissions estimates and development of mitigation strategies. The Climate Smart Commodity Project is an extension of a recent effort by this commodity checkoff organization to update its sustainability report.
The sustainability report was done 10 years ago, had never been updated. So we updated it and we found out that Climate Smart was a big issue.
Meanwhile, an enrollment period is scheduled to begin September 1st for sheep producers interested in participating in this Climate Smart program and implementing Climate Smart sheep management practices. The American Lamb Board's Climate Smart Commodity Project is scheduled to begin January 1st. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
U.S. ag exports will face challenges in fiscal year 2025. Gary Crawford has more.
Fiscal year 2025 could be a belt-tightening one for farmers who depend on exports. USDA is projecting 2025 exports at $169.5 billion. That's down $4 billion from this current year, down $26.5 billion from 2 years ago.
A lot of this is tied to falling commodity prices.
USDA's chief economist, Seth Meyer.
And then if we look at some other things around the world, maybe a slower Chinese economy, continued strength of the U.S. dollar, China diversifying its sources for for trade, perhaps a little bit weaker on export competitiveness for ourselves. Those are all things which are posing some challenges for our exports.
Meanwhile, imports keep rising. USDA says 2025 could end up with an ag trade deficit of over $42 billion. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
That's today's top agriculture news. I'm Sabrina Halverson. Thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West online at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can also find our broadcast team of Brian German and Sabrina Halverson on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.